I'm really excited for this second menopause empowerment call that we've decided to get going, and to link arms. We've all got to go through this stage, and it just is so much better. So we feel so much more empowered if we've got some knowledge about what to expect, about what to, just how to help ourselves get through this time. There's no point fighting it. We've all got to get through it. So welcome everybody to our menopause empowerment call, and welcome to our guest speaker Gill, who I'm really intrigued about your title, self-love coach. I'm all about that. That's fantastic. So I'm not going to rabbit on anymore because the floor is yours, Gill. So
thank you.
Just take it away.
Fantastic. Well, hello and welcome everybody. It's so nice. There were three that I know: Jude, Belinda, and Karen, and the rest of you. Such a warm welcome. Thanks for coming on the call tonight. So yes, I am Gill Pinnington, and I'm a self-love coach. And before my focus changed totally, well, not totally, but before I had a calling to support everybody with coming to that place of self-love, I was a resilience coach. And so my job was to help people cope with stress and depression and anxiety and burnout, and to come back from that and get really good health and good emotional well-being. So when Belinda said, "Oh, do you want to talk?" And I was like, yeah, because this is great, because I'm 51, I'll be 52 this year. And when was it? December, I think we've just had, I started with my first menopause symptoms, or perimenopause, if we're going to be pedantic about it. And I've got to say, I mean, I shared on a post Belinda put in the group the other day. Actually, I've been really, really lucky. I feel really lucky in the fact that my symptoms, to me, feel minimal, even though actually to another person they might not feel minimal, but maybe that's just where I am. Okay. So yeah, I'm just like all of us, starting to go through all those symptoms and things, and seeking out the right support and using the tools that I've got already to support myself, not only emotionally but physically as well. And the more research that I do around, what actually triggers all these symptoms and so on, the more it's about actually, it's not just well, I can't do anything about it. There's so much that we can do to support ourselves. And some people, they want to go to the doctor and go, okay, give me HRT and that's it, and be done with it. But I've been seeing homeopaths since I was 14, 15, something like that. I haven't seen the doctor in years. I go to my homeopath, I go to my functional nutritionist, I might go to an acupuncturist, and I do the other things that I do, which I'll share two of them with you. So tonight I'm going to be sharing with you three things. First thing is why women experience stress and anxiety and depression and those mood swings during menopause. And I don't think any of us are exempt to mood swings. And some of us, poor souls, will end up with that, the horrible anxiety as well that such a lot of women get in menopause, and the depression, the perimenopausal depression. The second thing I'm going to share are two ways that we can raise our estrogen levels and decrease our cortisol, which is our stress levels. Two things that we can do every single day that will help us on this menopause journey that we're on, and also help lots of other areas of our life. And I'm also going to share with you how menopause really is our time to step into self-love. It really is. So why women experience stress, anxiety, depression and mood swings during menopause, two ways to reduce your stress levels and boost your estrogen really quickly and simply every day, and how menopause is our time to step into self-love. That's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. Now, I was just saying to Paula at the very start of the call that I've probably got way too much content, because the more I started digging into all my research and, you know, that I've had for years and all this other stuff coming up, I was just like, okay, you go down a rabbit hole. And it's like Alice in Wonderland when you get to the other end of the rabbit hole. So I'm going to probably give you quite a lot of information in this first section, and I don't expect you to remember it all, but the things that you need to know, they will go in and they will stay there, and then you'll start attracting other things, other bits of information, other pieces of the puzzle, because that'll have just, oh, I knew a bit about that, or you know what, Google does that thing and it just sends you the things that you need. So when we're looking at why women experience stress, anxiety and depression in menopause, it's really interesting. And I was really surprised, because all the years that I helped people with stress, anxiety and depression, I never thought to factor in something like menopause. You know, I would look at history, you know, someone's history and what was going on in their life. And I'll ask you a question. I'm a trauma-informed coach. So I'm not, people say, oh, you're a life coach. No, I'm not. I'm actually a therapeutic coach. So I use really incredibly simple and gentle techniques to get to the very root of trauma. And trauma doesn't mean you've had a car accident or you've been abused. Trauma is, it can be just a really constantly high stress level. Yeah, that is a trauma on our body, okay, and all that comes with it. So I'm sure you probably all know that when we start going through menopause, our estrogen drops and our progesterone drops. And the thing I'm going to talk about that links most things is the estrogen. When our estrogen starts to drop, it affects our brain function. And when it affects our brain function, that means if our brain has less energy, our brain energy will reduce by about 30%. That's why you get those feeling like you just don't know what you're doing. Yeah, and you get all that confusion and stuff, and you're thinking, why am I at the front? Why am I up the top of the stairs with a milk bottle? That used to be my mum's thing. Now I understand. She used to regularly, almost every night, go. She'd get to the top and she'd go, oh, and she'd walk back down, and then she'd go and put them out the front door. But people don't even have blooming milk bottles these days, do they? Hardly ever. Yeah, so we can feel like we're losing it, but actually we're no less bright. It's just that our brain's got less energy because of the hormones that change. Now, there are 4 areas in our brain that are really critical really sensitive to this change in estrogen. The first one is the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus, its main job is temperature regulation. So this is where we get the flushes and the sweats from, okay? Because when the estrogen drops, it hasn't got enough to send to the right signals to the hypothalamus, and our temperature gauge goes all wonky. The thing about the hypothalamus is it also talks to our nervous system. Yeah, so when we say nervous system, if we've got any stressors going on, they'll be heightened. Or if we've got any ongoing stress, let's face it, we're all in a period of intense stress. Even the fact that we probably got used to this new normal and the easing and corona and all the rest of it, our stress levels are going to be way higher than they were this time last year, just because of what we've been going through and what we're still going through. There's all that uncertainty that is guaranteed to raise our stress levels. The temperature regulation and affecting our nervous system. It also is really influential in how much dopamine we've got in we're producing. And dopamine is one of the hormones that is responsible for fatigue, for feeling just like, ugh, I'm so apathetic and not wanting to do anything. And it's also the big hormone that's neurotransmitter, sorry, that's missing or not, or really, really low in depression. So if somebody's depressed, it's because they've got really low dopamine. Okay, now there's going to be a little bit more about dopamine later on, which is really, really interesting. It also helps to regulate our weight and our water balance. Yeah, this is still the hypothalamus, and it also helps to regulate our emotions and our sleep patterns. So just the fact that the hypothalamus isn't getting the amount of estrogen that it was having, it's knocking out all these different systems within us. It's like, because everything's a balance, you know, it's sort of like the body's function and all these, the ways everything interacts is to create homeostasis where everything just ticks along nicely. And it's when we get symptoms of something, whatever it is, it means that homeostasis is out of balance. Now, the next part of the brain that this lowering of estrogen messes up is our brainstem. And our brainstem's back here, and it's a really old part of our brain. And this is the big part of the brainstem is about the sleep and wake cycle, or circadian rhythms. So if you're having really trouble dropping off to sleep, or you're waking up early, or you're just getting really rubbish sleep, even if you're not getting flushes and, you know, hot sweats and things in the night, I don't know about you, but my sleep is dramatically different, and so many of my friends are saying the same thing. So that sleep wake cycle. And the thing about when we don't get enough sleep, or we don't get a good quality of sleep, is that, and there's lots of research behind this, when we're overtired and our sleep quality isn't good and we're not getting enough sleep, we make poor food choices. So we're more likely to head for the rubbish. Sorry, derogatory, I know, but that's how I think of it in my head. I'll go for the rubbish, or I'll go for the carbs, I'll go for the sugar, I'll go for the wine, I'll go for the comfort food, whatever it is. And then what happens? Yeah, we find we're relying on that. That's not feeding our body, not giving us the right fuel, plus we're probably putting on a bit of extra weight. Yeah. Okay. Now, interestingly, with the brainstem, you might have or might not have heard, there's a lot of talk and all sorts of webinars and online conferences and books and things about the vagus nerve at the moment. Give me a thumbs up if you heard about the vagus nerve. Yeah, okay. Sal, and I've forgotten your name down the bottom, Liz. I bet you now, every time you go on Google or the internet or Facebook or something, there'll be something there going, vagus nerve, because suddenly it'll be pink. It's like you buy a new car and suddenly you've got a green car and you've never seen a green car before. And then you go along the road and you're like, oh, I thought I had a really unusual car. I've got just seen 5 green cars in 10 minutes. You know, it's one of those things. So the thing about the brainstem, messages go from the brainstem to the vagus nerve and vice versa. And the vagus nerve is part of our nervous system, and it's the biggest controller of it is stress. Okay, so if we've got nervous system dysregulation, then the vagus nerve is contracting, and then that has this knock-on effect. And I'm wondering if, I'm not going to really talk about this tonight, but just a little throw out there. It's really interesting that some of the research that I found is that when we are in a stressed or an anxious state, so when we've got all those really heavy emotions, and even, I mean, I'm going like this because we feel like that quite often, don't we, when we get into that stress state and we go into that fight or flight or the freeze even. And actually the vagus nerve, because it starts down in our pelvic floor and goes up through the vagina and all the way up through our connects with all our intestines and all our organs, and then it branches off into 2 places, and then it goes up into the brain. Oh, sorry, it connects with the brainstem. It doesn't actually go into the brain. But when we've got this stress, any stress and anxiety in our bodies, it affects our pelvic floor, and our pelvic floor contracts, and it sends these messages up the vagus nerve, which then sends the spiral of the stress hormones go off in our body and all the rest of it. So if you're finding that your hips are tight, your lower back's tight and stuff like that, then yeah, check your stress levels out essentially. Okay, so we've talked about the hypothalamus and the brainstem, and now I'm just going to tell you about the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the memory center. So lower estrogen, not getting sending enough to the hippocampus, brain fog, confusion, forgetfulness, the milk bottles at the top of the stairs, you know, forgetting why, you know, where your keys are, not being able to like transfer things from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. So if you're trying to learn stuff, goodness help you. Jude was nodding and going, It's like you're like a goldfish, aren't you? You just can't retain the information. And the hippocampus is part of something called the limbic system, which is all about emotions and safety. So the fourth part of the brain that is affected is the amygdala. Now this for me is the gold in all of this, because it's the hippocampus and the amygdala that form the limbic system. And this is really, really old brain. You might hear people call it the reptile brain or the lizard brain. Excuse me. And the amygdala is the emotional center, but it's like the emotional center and the safety center of our brain. And so if you're getting those mood swings, this is because our emotion of the amygdala is dysregulated. So it doesn't really know what to do. Okay. But the big thing about the amygdala is that it's where one thing, it regulates safety, and the other thing is it processes fear. So fear, you might think, oh well, you know, I'm not in danger. I've got a house, and it's not like it's caveman times. I haven't got some marauding villagers from the next village trying to steal my wife or our food, and I haven't got a saber-toothed tiger, so I haven't got anyone to fight, and I haven't got anything to run away from, and I don't have to play dead because there's a predator, and I've got to pretend that, you know, that I'm dead already and it's not going to bother me. Just the fact of something like we've got corona going on and all that's going with it, and you might be uncertain about your job, you might be uncertain about if you've got kids at school, what's going on, and you've got all this extra stuff to juggle. All of that for our nervous system makes us feel unsafe. So the amygdala is not getting as much estrogen, which means it's on a high alert for looking for fear. So if we've got any anxiety or any stresses or any worries, they're going to feel escalated. And Belinda's, she's nodding there going, yeah! Yeah. Because what happens with the amygdala, if we've got something that happens, so something scary happens, and it goes into the amygdala, well, the emotional impulses of it, shall we say, the amygdala goes, okay, what do I make of this? Is it friend or foe? Am I safe or am I in danger? And it codes it. Okay, so it goes, oh, okay, so when I feel this or think this or see this or believe this or smell this, it's how phobias are formed, with the amygdala getting a faulty code. It goes, okay, so I'm going to flag this for danger. So when any of those things happen or you feel that particular way, it means your life could be in danger. This could be something really innocuous, but it depends on how you felt deep down. It doesn't even have to register on our conscious levels. Okay, this can all mostly is working at a subconscious level. And so what happens then is the amygdala is meant to go, oh, it's okay, you're all right. And then it should pass it through to the hippocampus, which is the one I was talking about before. And the hippocampus goes, okay, that's great. I'll store that as a memory that is safe, of something that I remember. Yeah. on this deep, deep subconscious level. But what happens is it gets stuck there, it gets stuck in the amygdala, because the amygdala goes, alarm bells, this isn't good. So that is going like crazy. It's like the alarm bells are going off all the time. And all of that is affecting our nervous system, which is affecting the vagus nerve. Remember I was talking about the vagus nerve? And the vagus nerve, really, really interesting, is that the vagus nerve goes up through the gut. Okay, so if the vagus nerve is dysregulated, if it's contracted because of fears and anxiety and so on, when it reaches the gut, it's affecting the dopamine, because actually there's more dopamine receptors, and dopamine is the thing about the depression. Yeah, so we need good levels of dopamine to reduce or remove the depression, shall we say. And so it gets to the gut, and because everything's contracting and the dopamine isn't getting produced because of that, and so you'll hear stuff around building up your microbiome and all of that, and that does help, but there's not enough dopamine produced, which means then we're more susceptible to depression. Okay. And depression, I did find 1 or 2 research papers on, they actually call it perimenopausal depression, very specific too. And there's so many women, they go to the doctor and they've got all these symptoms. The doctor goes, oh, shall I give you some Prozac, or shall I give you some citalopram, or whatever it is? And I'm not knocking that. I'm not knocking that at all. But actually, there are other things you can do to help regulate your nervous system so that you're going to get the neurotransmitters that you need. Because if we haven't got enough dopamine, we're not producing enough dopamine, there's a higher chance of depression, anxiety, and your stress levels going up as well. Okay. So, yeah. And the other piece of this really complex puzzle is that the amygdala also affects the adrenals, and the adrenals is where adrenaline and cortisol is produced, and they're the stress hormone. I mean, cortisol is the stress hormone that you hear talked about all the time. You've got it balances with the works with the adrenals, and so because there's not enough estrogen and it's giving different signals to the amygdala, and that's triggering all this old trauma and new fears and things, and the nervous system's dysregulated, and it means our cortisol is going up, which means our stress level is going up. We don't even have to be under any different pressure, but because everything's dysregulated, it's not got its normal balance levels of balance, it means that just everything, all the things that you don't want to increase are increasing. Okay, no, don't get super worried about this, because I've got lots of good news for you. Of course I'm going to give you the bad news first. Well, not bad news, it's information, and information is what helps us to understand, and once we understand, we take the fear out of it anyway. Yeah. And this isn't in here at all, but I'll just throw this in. Actually, stress itself, there's tons, oh my god, there's decades and decades of research about how bad for our health stress is, and and the health implications and ramifications, and yes, absolutely, all of those are correct, but there's also research out there that says what we believe about stress and our ability to cope with stress actually is a protective factor. So if we believe we can cope with stress, or we believe that a bit of stress is good, then the effects on our arteries and stuff, and the plaque that we get in our arteries is significantly different. And someone posted on the group about heart attacks and things, and I remember thinking, I went to say something, and I was like, oh no, I didn't have the time. It was ended up this big long thing that I was going to say. So there's always good news. Okay. Now, I just mentioned protective factors. Now, protective factors, I'm going to list them, but I'm not going to go into them. We really don't have the time for it here. But I think I did mention in the group, I'm going to be running a workshop on Sunday, the 9th of August, late morning. I think UK time will be 10 till 12:30, and we'll go more into all of this, plus do some amazing exercises that can help you. The protective factors are the food that we eat, so the nutrition that we're getting, whether we're getting enough exercise, whether we're drinking enough water, whether we're getting enough sleep. Now, I know the sleep thing, you might be going, oh, but I just can't sleep. Well, I'm going to give you something in just a minute that's going to help you with the sleep, and could even help you with putting in really positive habits. So there's food, exercise, water, sleep, but the next one is the biggest protective factor is reducing our stress. And so there's this, it's not just me saying this because stress used to be my thing. It used to be, you know, what my big focus was. This is the research, you know, that I'm finding. And the really interesting thing, some of the research that I found was that these same protective factors will also help protect us from Alzheimer's later in life. They're the very same things that to reduce or reduce our chances of Alzheimer's. If we do these things now, we're supporting our health in our 60s and our 70s and our 80s and beyond, because there are more women that have Alzheimer's than men, and that's because of the estrogen. Yeah. Okay. And this is straight from neuroscientists. Okay. So reducing our stress. Why do we need to reduce our stress? Well, the really interesting thing about cortisol, and cortisol is the stress hormone, but you've got cortisol and estrogen, and they balance each other. They're meant to balance each other out. So if cortisol goes up, estrogen goes down. Yeah. Cortisol goes down, estrogen goes up. So we want cortisol to be down, and we want estrogen to be up, because we've been losing the estrogen. We're not making enough. That's why we're getting all the symptoms. So we need the estrogen to rise. Easiest way, as well as the protective factors that looking after ourselves, is bringing our stress levels down. Now, if we leave our stress levels the way they are, we leave our cortisol level where it is, we've got more chance of the depression and the anxiety and mood swings. And if we've had any previous mental health issues around those, we're more likely to get those as our estrogen drops. Yeah. Okay, so it's like we're already predisposed because of the hormonal balance within us. So reducing our cortisol levels is the key to balancing our hormones. It's the key to reducing our symptoms, to reducing our health risks now and later in life, and also, more importantly, increasing our health outcomes. So that's a lot. I know I've given you a lot of information. So let's all go. I breathed in a bit funny there. I don't know what I did.
You have your drink, Gill. That I don't know about anybody else, but I'm just going penny drop, penny drop, penny drop with all the things you say, and it's amazing. Yeah. So,
and information is key in this, because it's otherwise it's like having a jigsaw puzzle and you haven't got the picture. You've got all these pieces, but you've no bloody idea what it's meant to look like or what you're meant to do with them. So, okay, right, you ready? I've got a little bit more info, and then we're going to do something really lovely. Yeah, a little bit more info, and then we'll do something really lovely. So the second part, got a bit of paper, was, excuse me, 2 ways to reduce your stress levels and boost your estrogen quickly and simply every day. Now, Jude and Karen and Belinda, you're probably thinking, she's going to do a bit of tapping now. Well, we're not going to have time to do some tapping. but we will have some time to do something else that's really, really lovely. I'm saving 5 minutes at the end for us to do this. So the two techniques that we can use that will bring down our cortisol levels, guaranteed, backed by, one of them is backed by 20 years of research, the other one is backed by nearly 40 years of research for bringing down cortisol levels. Okay, you're probably going to go, well, why don't doctors tell us this? Because the doctor medical training system is the way it is, and they're like 40 years behind, sadly, especially when it comes to menopause and stress and those things. So the first one is something called EFT, emotional freedom techniques, or you might have heard it referred to as tapping. So it's this thing when we're tapping on these different points of the face and the body, yeah, and people go, well, how blooming heck can that help me to bring down my cortisol levels? Well, it's not just tapping. You have to, we talk about the problem, we identify what the problem is, we identify what the emotion is and so on, but actually it's so super effective. And it's a sort of thing that you can learn to do in the space of an hour and be able to do it then, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes of it every single day. Now, I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm going to tell you a bit more about why EFT is so good for this, but I'm just going to ask Karen or Jude, because I know Jude's been tapping for years and Karen's been tapping for a few months now. What difference has it made, just in 2 sentences, what difference has it made in your life to know that you've got something like EFT as a tool every day?
For me, it's reduced my stress levels. Yeah, definitely. Even if it's long term or just a snapshot of in the moment, and I'm getting stressed and I'm aware and notice it, I'll do a bit of tapping. So it's reduced my stress, and it's definitely.
And by the way, they didn't know I was going to ask them. I haven't paid them any money for this. They'll probably ask me for a tenner later. No chance. Karen, what's it meant to you?
It's having a tool that I can use, especially when I start to feel certain emotions that are coming up, anxiety and other emotions, and that I can tune into that, and I have something that I can work with easily to be able to reduce the levels of the emotion that I'm feeling.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, Karen. And Jude, thank you. The thing about the tapping is there's over 100 research studies now which go back, I mean, a lot of them have been in the last 10 years, and we've got some amazing top class researchers now. And there are even some NHS trusts that have, even as long as like 5-6 years ago, commission EFT within their mental health services. Because you probably all heard about CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. It's the go-to thing that if anyone's got anxiety or depression or OCD or anything like that, they'll get sent for CBT. And EFT works in half the time of CBT, and it's way easier to use. And I can tell you now, almost every single client that I've ever had in the 8 years that I've been coaching, they come to me and discover EFT after they've been for the counselling, they've been for psychotherapy, they've been for psychoanalysis, they've been for CBT, and they're still stuck in the same place. And once they have the EFT, because it's so empowering. Jude, yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention that was my experience. EFT cuts down half the time that you could spend 2 hours going over of what was your father like, or what was your mother like, and it's like 10th time I've told you. EFT cuts it right down. It's amazing.
Oh,
sorry.
Thanks, Jude. Thank you for sharing that. So let me tell you a little bit about the benefits of doing EFT. It talks to the amygdala, which means it calms down the hippocampus and starts to change the tags that the whether it starts to change, like recodes it and then tells the hippocampus it's safe, which means that it brings down our cortisol levels, which means, and it can bring down cortisol levels by up to 43%. 1 hour of tapping with a practitioner can bring down cortisol levels by 24%. That's a quarter. 1 hour of tapping in a group, and I run a weekly tapping group, can bring down your cortisol level by 43.6%. I don't know anything else. I don't know of anything else that has these results. It's only a matter of time before, you know, every healthcare system in the world is going, why didn't we listen to you all and all the research, you know, X number of years ago? It's because it talks to the amygdala, which then talks to the hippocampus, it helps to regulate our nervous system. So it's working with our vagus nerve in that it's allowing it to go into rest and relaxation. Yeah, so it's starting to regulate again, which is how the cortisol comes down. The EFT as well, it boosts our immune system. And there was some of the studies showed that it changed, or it regulated gene expression. So gene expression, someone says, oh, well, you know, I've got the gene, if someone gets, well, we can have anything, we've got everything there potentially that could go wrong, but it's what genes are expressed as to whether we get this condition or that illness or that disease or whatever. So it builds up, it increases immunity, it regulates gene expression, and it reduces our cortisol, and so which means it's reducing our chances of the stress, anxiety, and that perimenopausal depression. It's so effective. It can even be used with people with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. That's like the top end of stress disorders. It can be used for, some of the studies show that it's been really effective on skin conditions, with diabetes, with sleep, with food cravings. Who wants help with food cravings? There was a big smile there from Sal, and she was just like, and Tracy. There's all, especially blooming menopause, you know, and none of us are going out as much, are we? Because of all the lockdown malarkey and stuff. And some of the studies show reduction in big reductions in anxiety and depression, as well as stress levels. So I probably don't even have to tell you anymore. But the thing is, in menopause, we can use it to balance our estrogen and cortisol levels. So we can be bringing down the cortisol and bringing up our estrogen, which then supports the rest of everything that's going on. Yeah. That makes everything else easier. So we're going to find we've got reduced symptoms, we've got better health outcomes, we've got better mood and emotions, and less chance of having that anxiety and the depression and so on. So it gives us that tool, like Jude and Karen have said, to keep that emotional balance. Plus it's doing all this amazing stuff, you know, with that. And yeah, and it's like, I feel better, and it's doing all this stuff inside as well. So the last thing I'm going to share with you and give you probably too much info for is the other technique, which is called heart breathing. And then we're going to do 5 minutes of this at the end, so you can go off into a gorgeous, blissful state, and you be going, oh, that's so nice. I like it. And Belinda probably remembers this from when you were in one of my workshops at Sun and Moon. I'm sure we did some at the beginning. So think with heart breathing. There's an American charitable organisation called the Institute of Heart Math, and they've been researching for about 40 years now, but the main body of their research has been in the last 20 to 30 years, and it's all looking at the power of the heart. Now, we're taught in science at school that it's the brain that does everything. Yeah, the brain sends all the signals down, the brain's the control center, it's the mastermind. But over the years and all this research in different areas, that's really not true anymore. Yeah, the brain does a lot, but actually it's our heart and our gut that more signals come from, up to the brain rather than from the brain down. So the thing about the heart and this beautifully simple breathing technique where it's, if you've ever tried mindfulness, or if you ever tried meditation and gone, oh, it's just too hard, I can't do it, which used to be me years and years and years ago, this is like the simplest way to go into a beautiful, resting, almost meditative state. So what happens is the brain, the heart is sending more signals to the brain than the brain is sending to the heart. So what that means is it's sending the heart is sending the signals to the brain for emotional processing, for our attention and our perception and our memory and our problem solving and our reasoning and our learning. Yeah, so heart breathing can help with all of those. And let's face it, with all that we've got going on, with all these menopause symptoms, we really need some support with that. Not only that, it brings down cortisol levels. Yes, the second thing that radically brings down cortisol levels. And it's amazing as well, just like the tapping, to calm and reduce negative emotions. I've used this with clients for years. It's like the EFT and the heart breathing, they go hand in hand. You know, you can use them together, like one after the other, or both can be used within a space of 5-10 minutes and you feel dramatically different. I've used heart breathing at funerals when I've been like super upset. I've used it before interviews. I've done it sitting on the bus. I've done it sitting on the loo when I used to work at a really busy college. I used to go sit on the loo because no one ever questions you if you go to the loo. Someone will go, oh, I think she's gone to the toilet. No comment unless they're really bloody rude about, well, you were a bit long, weren't you? And I used to go in, I'd go to the end one. I always go to the block of toilets that hardly anybody used. And I'd lock the door and I'd be sitting there and I'd be doing my tapping, or I'd be sitting there doing some heart breathing. And I'd go back like, oh, then. And nobody would have had a clue because they just thought, oh, I'd been for a wee and washed my hands and chat to someone in the corridor and all the rest of it. Nobody ever batted an eyelid. And all the time, I was regulating my emotions. I was bringing down my stress, which is my cortisol level. Now, the beautiful thing about the heart breathing technique is that it helps us, it strengthens the resilience of our heart, and which ripples out literally into all these different protective factors within our body. And it also helps us to control our emotional responses. And guess what? It regulates our nervous system, so it helps regulate that vagus nerve again. So it's like another piece in the puzzle, and it's something so easy that you can learn to do. So the heart breathing and the EFT, they absolutely are the two easiest and most beautiful things that you can do to support yourself. And even if all the menopause symptoms stopped tomorrow, you would still want to use them because they're so lovely. Oh, and it improves immune function as well. Hey, yeah, again. Okay, so we're getting to the very end now. Okay, I'm so enjoying this. So much. I know it's a bit much info. Maybe there's a bit of paper. People losing it. There we go. So third thing, so we've looked at why women experience stress, anxiety, depression and mood swings during menopause. We've looked at 2 ways you can reduce your stress levels and boost your estrogen. So both of them are going to raise our estrogen and reduce our cortisol. And so now I'm going to talk about how menopause is our time to step into self-love. And you're probably thinking, well, that's all really sciencey and all about stress. So what the bloody hell has that got to do with self-love? Well, self-love is about looking after ourselves, about meeting our needs. Yeah. And you know, and as women now, life is so different. I mean, all the corona craziness aside, as women, this is a time like no other. You know, if we look at the freedom and the choice and the opportunities that we have compared to our mothers and our grandmothers, this is so different. I mean, even just the access to information that we have is so vastly different. Vastly different. I mean, my dad would never have, my mum, bless her, she died before she was 50, but my dad would never have stopped her from doing something. Yet at the same time, she didn't have the courage or the confidence to go and do half the things that she wanted. And I think a lot of that was because she wasn't ever taught how to look after herself and how to look after her emotional health or her physical health. So if you think about the freedom, the choice, and the opportunities that we have, I mean, once upon a time, menopause, it was an ending. It was all these things that stopped. You know, it was the end of child rearing. It was the end of sexual pleasure and romance. It was the end of careers. It was the end of our vitality. And it was the end of our dreams and our aspirations. And actually, now we are the generation that don't have to say it's an end. You know, actually, what it is now for us, it's a beginning. It really is a beginning. It's, you know, let's face it, all we used to have to look forward to when it got to menopause, and we would have had children a lot younger generally, so we'd have been looking at decline in health and well-being, you know, babysitting duties for the grandkids. And I've got lots of friends who've got grandkids now, and they love that bit because they can give them back. That's the thing that they love most. But there would be, yeah, decline in health and well-being, and babysitting the grandkids, and retirement, and old age, and just this sort of nothingness almost. And I remember seeing that, you know, in my mum and my nan and even my great gran. And then now we're having kids older, and we can have careers and businesses so much longer. We can go on travels and adventures, and we can have that health and life fulfillment that perhaps we didn't think was possible because we had so many responsibilities. And I know lots of us are reaching menopause and we've still got lots of responsibilities, but we've also got those different opportunities. Yeah. And so this is why it's our opportunity to step into self-love, because things are so different. It's the beginning for us. Menopause is our time to stop and to reflect about where we are now and where we've come from. It's our time to understand who we are and what we want. It's our time to refocus and to choose to do things differently. It's our time to discover and to what our needs are and how we can meet those needs in healthy ways for ourselves. It's time to release the beliefs and the blocks and the behaviors that have kept us in those holding patterns. Yeah, have kept us in destructive ways and unfulfilling parts of our lives. It's time to cherish and accept our physical bodies and all the changes that are going on, and to release those judgments that we've been holding about ourselves, sometimes for a lifetime. And it's time to nurture our soul and expand into our spiritual energy. And it's time to be the woman that we always dreamed we could be. And most of all, it is our time to step into self-love and to really honor who we are. And so it might seem like a really big ask to say, well, how the bloody hell am I going to do any of that, plus sort out all these menopause symptoms and keep all the balls juggling in the air? Well, it is possible, because you don't have to do it alone. There is lots of support out there for you. And coming from where I am, from what I can offer you, there's lots of support that I can offer. And I've already mentioned that I run a weekly circle of love, and Karen and Jude actually have been regulars right from the start. And it started off as something to support everybody through the corona craziness at the beginning, the lockdown and the anxiety and the isolation, and it's continued all these months, and it's every single week, and it's still a donation workshop. Sally says, oh, okay. And there is already a link on the group, but I'll post all these things again so you've got really easy access to them. There's the Circle of Love. I've also got a Journey to Self-Love Facebook group, which you're in, Belinda, aren't you? Yeah, so Belinda and Jude and carry on. Everybody's welcome. Don't have to be a woman. It's not a female thing. There's lots of guys in there. There's only one or two that pipe up, but I know that they do actually look. And what I do with that is I give I try and post a question each day, which helps us to look at where we are and who we are and how we can be the best version of ourselves that we can be. Belinda was going, people I get messages saying, oh, I really like those questions. I don't always like respond, but I've read it and I'm in really hooked, and I'm going, oh bloody hell, that's really made me think, yeah. So there's the Circle of Love and the Journey to Self-Love group, and say coming up on the 9th of August, there's going to be the menopause workshop. So I'll be going through this information again, but there'll be a heap of other stuff. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing some of the EFT, we're going to be doing some of the heart breathing, and there's going to be another 7 different techniques that you can use, things that you can do even while you're waiting for the kettle to boil, yeah, or while you're watching the TV. Some of them are so simple, and they will all support your hormones and your estrogen and your cortisol levels. So, and there's going to be a full workbook that goes with that, and there will be a little bit of ongoing support. So that's going to be Sunday the 9th of August from 10 till 12:30 UK time, and it's £35. So I'll post some info in that tomorrow, or into the group that tomorrow or the day after. And then, of course, there's what I do. There's one-to-one coaching. So this is what I mean. There's so much support out there, yeah. And some of us like to work in a group, and some of us want that one-to-one support, because when you've got one-to-one support, it means it really is all about you. And so whether that's you're trying to navigate all these emotions that you're going through and just this change in life, or whether you've got stuff that is going back years, actually it's a really safe space to feel nurtured and supported, to move forward, to leave behind the past and actually start stepping into your future and discovering who you are and how I can meet my needs in ways that really, really support me. So I probably should have finished 5 minutes ago, but can we have another 5 minutes to do the heart breathing? Is that all right? Ah, beautiful. Who's up for a little bit of heart breathing then, to be blissed out? Yeah, I fancy a little bit of 5 minutes of bliss. Fantastic. Okay. Well done, all of you, for listening to me blathering on. I don't think I've talked this much in, oh my God, I don't know. That's like, I could have done a whole day's training just on that. You know how I crammed so much in. So let's just, wherever you are, wherever you're sitting or lying, and just take a couple of breaths in. And just dropping into your body. And taking a slow, steady breath in. And a slow, steady breath out. Closing your eyes if it helps. Leaving the world to one side. It'll all still be there. Taking a slow, steady breath in. And a slow, steady breath out. And taking your attention to your heart. Imagining your breath coming in through your heart and out through your heart. In through your heart and out through your heart. And I invite you to put a hand on your heart space, wherever that is for you, to connect deeper and deeper with the power of your heart. And breathing in through the heart and out through the heart. In through the heart and out through the heart. And I'd like you to bring to mind someone or something you really care about. Whether it's a person, an animal, place, whatever that is that you really, really care about. And as you notice how much you care, I want you to take that into your heart and breathe that in through your heart and out through your heart. Breathing in through your heart and out through your heart. Every breath and every heartbeat, that care and compassion growing deeper and deeper within you. Breathing in through your heart and out through your heart. Noticing how that feels within you. Noticing how your body feels. Noticing how you feel inside. As that care and compassion flows out from your heart into every cell, growing stronger and stronger, deeper and deeper into every cell in your body, filling you completely from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, to the ends of your fingers. And bringing your awareness back now to your conscious physical body that sat on that seat, in that room, in that building you know so well. Bringing all of that care and compassion into this moment with you now, to carry it with you into your night and into your day. moving your fingers, your toes, moving your shoulders, and having a nice big breath. Stretch if you need it. That's your reward for listening to me for an hour.
That was amazing. I knew I was going to love you.
No, thank you, Paula.
I just knew
so
it.
Nice.
That was amazing. Yes, so lovely. So lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks all for coming along and for listening, because I know it was a lot of info. But it's like, when you feel like you just got to share this because it's, like you said, so many pieces of the puzzle. And even if we don't understand it all right now, actually, it just brings all that stuff into our awareness so that we don't think we're going mad. Yeah. Oh, we don't think that we start to really realize that there's so much hope and that we can take back control of our health and our well-being.